6:31 and there's three of us, which is quorum by my count, right?
Correct.
All right, so although we don't have a super full agenda, I'll just announce when Commissioner Goodman does join us. Are we recording?
Yes.
All right. It being on or about 6:30, I call the meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission to order. This meeting is being conducted remotely over Zoom, and remote attendance shall count towards a quorum. This meeting is also being recorded and or broadcast live via ECAT. Let's begin as we always do with a roll call vote to establish quorum. Carol, present.
Spadia, present.
Vecchio, present.
So our first item on the agenda, per usual, is a opportunity for general public comment. This isn't to be geared towards anything that we're going to be discussing or listed on the agenda tonight. If anyone is here to give the commission a general public comment, please raise your hand using the Zoom function and we'll promote you to a panelist.
Nope.
All right, so seeing as nobody's here for general public comment, we'll move on to our first order of business, which is the Stormwater Utility Fund presentation and request for endorsement by David Field.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi, David. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. The Stormwater Steering Committee appreciates this. So obviously, Conservation Commission deals, with a lot of important environmental topics, and we felt it was a good idea to come and give a real brief presentation, and I'll be very brief. I'll go through these slides really quick. If you have any questions, please stop me. But just to give you an idea what we're looking at for the stormwater utility and maybe ask any questions you have, and hopefully have your endorsement.
Thank you.
I'm going to share my screen, hopefully.
Looks like it's loading. You're up.
Excellent. Just trying to get it to Zoom is always fun how it moves you around. So here we go. All right. So why a stormwater utility? We have a significant amount of existing infrastructure, and we really have no budget to maintain it or replace it as necessary. We're required to follow our MS4 permit, and those conditions are ramping up more and more every time the permit's renewed. And the same thing with the next permit. We anticipate additional requirements. So currently we have $35 million of identified needs in no real operating budget to deal with that. As I said, the MS4 draft permit includes a lot more requirements, and one of those requirements is replacing 20% of your non-compliant catch basins within 5 years. So we estimate that's a $2.8 million ask. We recently completed a stormwater asset management on 112 culverts, and just our 8 most critical culverts are going to cost us $16.9 million to address. That report also recommended adopting a stormwater enterprise fee. And then we have over 125,000 linear feet of corrugated metal pipe. All of this is past its useful age, is well past its life expectancy, and is starting to fail. We recently replaced 1,200 linear feet on Bay Road when a sinkhole opened up a couple of years ago. When we put a camera down to inspect that pipe, it was basically gone, and all we had was soil where the pipe used to be. So to replace all of that, just materials only, is $15.6 million. So these are all the needs we have, and that's why we need a stormwater utility. The Stormwater Utility Steering Committee, 7-member committee, looked at all the needs and all the issues, had, I think, 7 public meetings, and ultimately is recommending adopting a $25 quarterly fee for all residential condos and single-family parcels, and then a $25 quarterly fee for all other parcels based on the equivalent residential unit. So if the median house size of impervious surface is 3,900 square feet, if you had a 9,000 feet of impervious surface in this example, you would be assessed 2 ERUs. So you'd be paying $50 a quarter. It would exempt municipal and state-owned properties, state-owned because we can't assess them a fee due to mass general law. And we didn't want to raise the general fund levy to pay for this fee. So we didn't want to have to charge the school department, fire department to do something that we really need to get done anyway. And we anticipate generating $1.3 million in annual revenue. There is a stormwater fee mapping application, so people can look on there, look on the application and find out what the proposed fee is going to be. All this information is available on the Stormwater Utility Steering Committee webpage, so anyone can look up that at any point. And then potential uses, obviously these are just examples, but we could pay for the debt service on new equipment when that equipment is needed. So when a street sweeper is up or a catch basin cleaner, which is actually up now, or dump truck needs to be purchased, that would pay the debt service on those. And they usually have a 12 to 15-year lifespan. So the debt service, equipment operating costs to operate those pieces of equipment, disposal of our street sweepings, which is a fairly large cost, and even personnel we could transfer into the enterprise fund to reflect the time they spend currently. So we're not looking to hire new people. We're just talking to basically take those existing personnel and transfer some of that salary to recognize the level of effort that's involved in maintaining our stormwater compliance. And then it would leave us with about $820,000 in this example for capital costs of replacing culverts, drainage systems, things like that. So we have a large project, we could bond that and get it done, design, build, bid it and build it, and hopefully knock off some of these large pressing projects that will be coming down the line. So in conclusion, this is a stormwater utility is a stable, dedicated funding source. It's equitably assessed to all parcels with impervious surface, and it'll help us meet our mandates and improve our infrastructure and water quality. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
So we just talked about roughly $32 million in need, with about 16.2 million and just the expenses associated with materials for those projects. Is 820,000 a year post sort of fixed costs enough to bond that amount of money to get those projects underway?
Yeah, I believe so. And again, that's an example. Town meeting would actually approve a budget. That'll be next year if this thing passes. Those are just examples, and it's not been vetted by anyone. So the amount we'd have available would depends on what the budget town meeting would set. But in general, yes, I believe if we had that type of ballpark number, we could put together a $3 million culvert project and get that done over a couple of years in having that debt service paid off. But it's a good place to start. Like any budget we have, we're never going to meet what exactly we should. Like our water division doesn't replace the amount of pipe we should in a given year just because of constraints. We don't want to raise the rates too much. Is a fine line. So just like stormwater, it'd be the same thing. We don't want to ask too much. We want to try to at least start in a logical spot and be able to tackle the high priority items we have.
I have a couple that are
Anybody else?
logistical, so you may not be able to answer them. The stormwater assessment management plan, when they were evaluating the culverts, were they including meeting stream crossing standards in there? Or is there a recommendation for that?
Yeah, so on the larger ones, I believe that's definitely included. And so the numbers they gave are to do a full project, designed, build it, and to meet all necessary requirements.
Okay. And impervious cover is based on GIS. Does that update every year with a new layer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a subscription to Nearmap, and as part of this, we got a $35,000 appropriation to study this, and the near map extension, I believe, is $6,000. So if this does pass every year, every spring, we would update the impervious surface area. A lot of it won't change on a day-to-day basis or year-to-year basis because we're assigning a fixed fee for all the residential single-family houses and residential condo units. That's really the majority. 5,000 parcels are fit in that category. It's the other parcels that we would look to, modify as a development happens. Someone changes in, pervious surface to impervious through a development, we'll be able to capture that. So there'll probably be a year lag between when a development happens and when we actually catch it, but that's fine. I think that's the normal course of action. So we would do that every year, every spring, and evaluate those changes. And we have the ability with GIS to do that look back. It's a pretty nice program.
Yeah. Okay, so that sort of answers my next question about how you add or update the layer. It's not coming from the building inspector or from us saying, somebody put in a garage or an addition or something like that. It's all going to be generated from GIS.
Yeah, that's the intent. The rules and regulations will specify exactly, but in general, we'll bill for the next fiscal year, say in FY27, it would be what the impervious cover was in the spring of 2026.
Okay.
So that's really how we would do it, and make any adjustments necessary. We wouldn't look to change it just administratively. It'd be burdensome. We would wait for the full year to go by and then update as needed.
Okay. The last one, any chance this will eventually include a townwide compost area where people can bring their leaves rather than having them in the catch basins or detention basins? Just throwing that in there again.
Yeah, that's something we could definitely talk about. There's no plan for that at this time, but that, I think would be an allowable use to have something like that. Unfortunately, that has to be staffed and manned, and you have to be permitted by Mass DEP. That's why we don't have it at this point. But again, that would be a use that is allowable.
That's it for me.
All right, I have one more. This is probably a nitpicky question, but so we permit a whole lot of projects where they're infiltrating their impervious surfaces through one method or another. Is that accounted for in this situation, or is that sort of thought of as the impervious surface still exists, therefore it still applies?
Yeah, so I don't know of any parcel that does 100% infiltration of all stormwater. I've never seen that in my 30 years of being a professional engineer. Generally, we're attenuating that peak rate of runoff, infiltrating as much as we can. But in general, there's still always runoff from parcels. So this is a question we're getting a lot, actually, that I have a private development. We maintain our own stormwater. I have a private business that maintains its own stormwater. Those are good requirements, and we're not going to change that. But there's still impervious runoff that happens even in a parcel that meets the stormwater management standards. And it still runs off, and it may not. It may go to wetlands and a stream, but then it's going to go through, 2, 3, 10 culverts before it makes its way out of Easton. So everyone's still subject to it, even though they may have stormwater best management practices, infiltration and things like that. But that's to meet the stormwater requirements associated with building. Doesn't relieve them of the runoff, which still impacts the town drainage system and culverts.
That makes sense. Thank you. Phil, Mike, do either of you have any questions?
You guys covered the questions I had, so I'm all set.
Same, good for me. Thank you.
All right.
You have an
I assume we need a motion.
you have an audience question.
Okay, so
if you're ready, I'll promote Kyla Bennett.
I'm sorry, Jen, I didn't hear you. You said we have an audience question?
You did, but she just took her hand down.
So I'll just
there it
ask more
is.
formally. Any member of the public here to give comment on this, please raise your hand. I see Kyla Bennett has her hand raised. We will promote you to panelist.
Thank you so much, Jen. And Dave, good to see you. I am totally in favor of this. I think it's a great idea. I'm going to go to town meeting and vote yes. I just have a quick question. How did you guys determine which parcels were impervious and which were not? And the reason I ask is that your map is different than the Commonwealth's map of impervious surfaces, particularly in regard to the 2 artificial turf fields in town, and also EPA's MS4 permit Appendix A says that artificial turf fields are impervious. So I'm wondering why they don't show up as impervious on your map.
So that's a good question, Kyle. Thank you. We're using near map and its extension to determine impervious surface, and that's basically hard surfaces, concrete, roofs, asphalt paving. So because artificial turf looks like turf, I don't believe any mapping application is going to pick that up. But those are also exempted. Those parcels are exempted because they're municipal. So it's really inconsequential to our calculations. But yes, that's how we do it. It's through GIS, through aerial photographs. Where the limitations are most on GIS is where there's a lot of tree cover, and that's generally your residential parcels. And that's one of the other reasons why we're assigning the residential parcels a fixed fee, and not using a calculation to determine that. We're only using the calculation to determine what the median residential parcel is, to determine all those other parcels equivalent residential unit. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. I'm not sure to what extent there are people, especially like people who have dog boarding facilities, that they may have artificial turf in their yards or whatever that may be misidentified as pervious. So just flagging that for you. No big deal, just flagging it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kyle, I see that you muted yourself. Did you have any additional questions?
Not on this topic. Thank you.
Okay, we do have a difficult time removing people back to the panel, so we'll probably just leave you here as a panelist. Just know that if
That's fine. I have another question on the new pond, so thank you.
Okay. Any other members of the public here to give public comment regarding this issue?
Nope.
Seeing none, I'd make a motion for the Conservation Commission to endorse the Stormwater Utility Enterprise Fund.
Spady, a second.
Carol motion, Spady a second. Roll call vote. Carol, I.
Spady, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, David.
So Mike Goodman has been here. I tried to promote him 3 times and it declined. I'm going to try again. Mike, if you're having an issue, maybe it immediately says declined. So I've been trying to promote you if you're listening. You might want to go out and try to come back in again or raise your hand and we'll try to get you in there. But he's been here pretty much since the beginning.
That's really odd.
Yeah, as soon as I do promote to panelists, it immediately pops up declined.
Okay.
I thought maybe he was busy and in the car or something and not able to.
Yeah,
just yet,
perhaps
so I figured I would
another
wait.
device.
Yeah.
If you can hear us, Mike. All right, let's move on to hearings and possible deliberations. First up is 104 Elm Street, which is a request for determination of applicability.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Hey, Peter.
Hey, Peter, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm gonna share the plan and we'll get going. All right.
You can see it.
Be looking at it, good. For the record, Peter Lyons with Collins Civil Engineering Group, representing the property owner tonight at this project. As mentioned, this is an RDA. We're here for basically site access through resource areas to get to a proposed addition. This is a pretty big site. It's about 12 acres overall. This is just west of Town Hall. Sure you guys drive by it all the time. It's got the nice river out front. So just looking at the map, we do have riverfront and a existing pond. So a couple of resources we're dealing with are the 100 and 200 foot inner and outer riparian riverfront resources. And then there's also a flood zone AE elevation 124. That's this kind of faint blue line running through the southern portion of the property. The 100-foot buffer to that is shown on the plan. Our proposal here, I'm just going to zoom in so hopefully you can see what's going on. This is an existing home, and they're proposing adding an addition off the back of the house. This is our 200-foot riverfront buffer to the north. This is a BVW here and the 100-foot associated with that. So the actual work is well outside all of the resource areas. We are requesting access between the 100 and the 200 for site access, basically including widening an existing dirt/gravel driveway as needed. That will give us, basically it's existing access, but we need to make it big enough to accommodate heavier equipment, dump trucks and things of that nature. So there'll probably be a little bit of trimming, some brush along this entranceway here. Then we get back into a lawn area. We've proposed sedimentation control, basically protecting the whole down gradient area. Starts here, goes along through the yard, and ends at the paved access driveway to the properties. We've also shown a crushed stone tracking pad where the vehicles will be turning off and on to the existing pavement. This site is basically totally surrounded by resource areas. So we proposed 28 of the Eastern Standard conservation signs to be placed along the existing tree line. If you look, they basically parallel the tree line and the wetland line, and then down around the pond, there's an existing chain link fence. So the post would just be attached to the fence in those areas. And then down to the south, we end up back along the tree line. For the concrete foundation, we've proposed a washout area well outside the buffers. That area was recommended directly from the concrete contractor. So plenty away from all the resources there. I think that pretty much covers it. Is there any other questions or concerns from the commission? Again, this is just an RDA for site access and staging, so equipment and vehicles.
The gravel pad that's being proposed, is that staying post-construction?
No, basically once the site's stabilized, that will be removed. That's just to keep the mud and stuff from the trucks and equipment's tires in the yard and not getting tracked all the way down the driveway and ultimately to Elm Street. So that'll be removed. Basically, once all the big vehicles are out, that'll come out and then they're out of there.
The existing sort of access road is currently gravel.
Yeah, I would say it's older gravel, kind of like last time I was out there. It's like the 2 lanes where the wheels go are kind of gravelly with a little bit of grass and weedy vegetation in between. But it's definitely, a historic used access road.
Okay. Aside from this project, Commissioner Goodman, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, Mr. Chair. I was in browser, not app. I have a new phone.
Okay.
So.
All right. So
I
we
can
can't
hear
see
and
you, but we
see,
can hear you.
And I did hear Jennifer's previous comments, so I do appreciate the feedback and the acknowledgement that I was indeed there for pretty much everything but the deliberation and the vote.
So, just noting for the record that Commissioner Goodman joined the meeting at 6:51.
Thank you.
Yep. Peter, those were my questions. Jen, do you have anything?
Just to note, we did get revised plans. 28 markers might be a bit much for that particular property. It is the standard that we usually have, but we can probably reduce that a little bit at pre-construction meeting. Again, they're supposed to be friendly reminders, not obnoxious, so I can meet with them and we can, probably reduce the number of markers that are going in that area. And then
It does seem like a lot of markers.
yeah, I mean, it's a big area, so they are
Yeah.
25 feet apart. That is what we require, but maybe not be that obvious. And just that the shed, you may want to ask Historical Commission if there's any demolition delay on the shed the building that's to be raised. Just
Okay.
not a wetland issue,
More
just
about
bringing it
that.
to your attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Any other questions or comments from members of the commission?
Oh, and Ben, it is both Wetland Protection Act and the bylaw. So the agenda, as the determinations as I drafted for you.
Got it. Thank you. Threw me for a loop there. Any members of the public here to give public comment on 104 Elm Street? Seeing none, motion to close the hearing for 104 Elm Street.
Vecchio, second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second, roll call vote, Carol I.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Motion to issue a determination of applicability noting Wetland Protection Act +5, -3, and bylaws a -3.
Vecchio, second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second, roll call vote, Carol I.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Thank you, Peter.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. See you next time.
Take care.
Up next is 581 Foundry Street, notice of intent for aquatic plant management at New Pond.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Hi, good evening.
So, as mentioned, this is a notice of intent filing for an aquatic management program at New Pond. My name is Karen Portillo. I'm the permit coordinator with Water and Wetland, and I'm joined here by James, our project manager and senior environmental biologist. We are here representing the Town of Easton regarding this notice of intent. This is a long-term aquatic management program for the roughly 18-acre New Pond. It is a freshwater pond in Easton with access from New Pond Way, and it has an inlet from Pequantucket Brook to the north and an outlet to Mulberry Brook at the dam to the south. Regarding the project, we have completed surveying data, so a full aquatic vegetation and water quality survey. That survey documented mainly 2 invasive species, which would be fanwort and variable milfoil. They were found throughout much of the pond and were actively reproducing at the time of the survey. There were also native species present, but the goal is not to remove all the vegetation. It is only to control invasive species and reduce any nuisance densities while preserving and allowing recovery of native plant communities. So the project is in mainly 3 parts. So there'd be an initial whole pond fluoridone treatment in the first season to address the broad distribution of fanwort and variable milfoil. Fluoridone is EPA approved for aquatic use, and it is proposed here because it is a slow systemic treatment, and thus it is the best fit for a pond-wide infestation like this one here. And then in later years, management becomes very much so survey-based. We will not automatically treat the pond every year. We will do annual surveys, which will guide whether follow-up should be more chemical treatment, if it should be hand pulling, or just targeted selective treatment only where conditions warrant. And we will only ever target the nuisance densities or invasive species. We have evaluated alternatives as well. Doing nothing was not recommended because it would allow continued spread of invasive growth, loss of native diversity, worsening habitat conditions, and also just more in general long-term water quality decline. Manual only approaches like hand pulling or dash are useful for later on, like once the main infestation has been under control. Mechanical harvesting and hydro raking are not the best options because these both species, fanwort and milfoil, can spread by fragmentation. So this actually would worsen the conditions of the pond while also causing more disturbance. Biological control is not available because it's not an approved option for these species in Massachusetts, and dredging would be highly disruptive and cost prohibitive. So in our point of view, the proposed approach is the most reasonable, most cost-effective and practical option for the conditions documented at New Pond. It currently addresses the pond-wide invasive distribution with the least repeatedly disruptive initial method, and then it narrows to then being more selective, survey-driven maintenance over time. The target is, of course, only the invasive species, primarily fanwort and water milfoil, and any nuisance level conditions if they arise. And yeah, so we are filing on behalf of the Town of Easton, and we will, of course, move forward with any feedback from the Conservation Commission and always aim to be compliant and with permit conditions as well.
Thank you, Karen. Could you walk us through kind of the means and methods as to how this is applied to the waterway?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if James wanted to take this, but so we would start with
And I apologize if I interrupted, if the two of
No,
you were
that's okay.
splitting that up.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so the program starts with pre-treatment survey, confirm existing conditions and the target species distribution. So based on that, we would do the fluoridone treatment. I'm not exactly sure on the target parts per billion, but I believe it's 8 to 10. James can jump in on that if that's correct or not. And we would aim to maintain that for roughly 60 days. We would aim for the initial application earliest possible. It would be most effective May, June, so when the plants are still immature and most susceptible. But there may be 1 to 2 follow-up bump applications spaced out like 3 or 4 weeks apart to maintain that target concentration. No more than 1/3 of the water body will be treated at one time, or 1/2 of the littoral zone. So it won't be a whole pond treatment all at once in one treatment day. And then, yeah, they would then transition to a survey-based spot treatment method.
So logistically, though, this is applied directly to the section of the pond that you're treating by putting the product in, obviously, from the top.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can jump in here just to piggyback off what Karen said. As she mentioned, my name's James from Water and Wetland. Kind of oversee everything at our branch, from A to Z throughout the project, from logistics, permitting, treatment, survey, you name it. It will most likely go through me. So everything here, especially with the fluoridone we're proposing to use, it's a systemic herbicide, therefore getting carryover control from year to year. As Karen mentioned, you need to maintain concentration for 45 to 60 days in order to get that kind of lethal control. Everything's done through a small treatment vessel for this pond. We would use a 12-foot John boat. The herbicide is diluted with pond water on board a mixing tank and all subsurface injection, as Karen mentioned. So as she did say, we do need that concentration for 45 to 60 days. This would be comprised of initial treatment followed by theoretically a bump treatment 2 to 4 weeks later, just depending on weather patterns, etc. Followed by the potential of one more bump treatment, just depending if it's necessary, which will be based off survey conditions conducted prior to the treatment.
So how, if at all, will this impact native plants that exist in the pond?
Yeah, and as she mentioned, I mean, the herbicides these days are extremely selective. The technology that's coming out, it's you know, all done through research. Specifically targets certain cells within the plant. I know we did put a few different herbicides on here just to include all the tools in our pocket. Fluoridone, which we're proposing to use year one, specifically targets aquatic vegetation just based off of the dosing that is prescribed. The higher the dose, the more species that you can kind of eclipse within that umbrella of target species. The lower is more specific to actual vegetation such as fanwort and milfoil here. There's other herbicides that are proposed to use in later stages. Each herbicide that is on there is only on there for a reason. We're not looking to use every single herbicide that is included within the NOI package. Each herbicide, depending what year, you know, 2 through 5 looks like for monitoring, depending what regrowth happens, that would just depend on what herbicide we decide to use on our end.
And what type of sort of eradication rates are we potentially looking at here for the invasives?
Yeah, so fluoridone works great. Like I said, it's a systemic. Fanwort is within the pond. Only 2 herbicides are approved by the EPA that specifically target fanwort. You have fluoridone, which is the systemic herbicide. Then you have flumioxazin, which is the contact herbicide. You also have the variable milfoil in there, also susceptible to fluoridone. Fanwort is more susceptible. You're probably looking at about 3 to 5 years control. Each pond is uniquely different in the characteristics in which each plant grows and how the pond and the water quality responds to treatment. We've had clients that have had 5+ years of no fanwort before they start to see minimal regrowth. We have other clients that are closer to the 3 to 4 year range. Milfoil is not as susceptible, but certainly is susceptible. I'd say the years you'd see for eradication control are probably more of the 2 to 4 instead of the 3 to 5. Even though, like I said, very various depending on that growth. It could be 5 years from now, and you know, Jen and you know the commission's looking out to us saying this is incredible. All the natives are replenishing areas where there is invasives. Everything looks great. Or it could be, you know, year 2 or 3, we decide, you know, how we decide to guide the aquatic management program from there.
Okay, and then the alternative to this would be functionally hand pulling invasives.
Correct. And as Karen mentioned, we certainly to just you know, say we aren't just a treatment, you know, company. We do offer a variety of different services, you know, from fountain aeration to benthic barrier mats. I mean, you name it, we probably cover it in some sort of aspect. The 2 approaches we could look at here, whether it's mechanical or benthic mats, that's more used for, you know, beach areas, recreation areas, etc. You wouldn't cover this whole pond with, you know, benthic mats. Same with hydro raking and, you know, harvesting. It would only make the problem worse. When it comes to dash work, we really try to limit the dash work to about half an acre. Anything over a half an acre becomes extremely costly, I guess, on the client's end and very time consuming. Will it get to that point in the future? You know, certainly maybe we can switch from, you know, an herbicide approach to certainly an alternative analysis approach, whether it's dash work, or really just a monitoring approach. So like Karen said really well, you know, we don't just go out there and treat. Everything we do is based off of survey data collected. We go through this whole entire analysis, alternative analysis from our end. And really come up with the best program when it comes to budget and the best results and goals of the client and ourselves.
Okay. Another question that I sort of had in my head, and I don't even know how applicable this is, but would the material, when the invasives are killed as a result of the herbicide application, would their decomposing result in algae blooms that we need to be alert to?
So the pond would be susceptible to some sort of a nutrient influx for sure. The best way I put it, and the best analogy is when you have the plants growing, those plants are absorbing any sort of excess nutrients during that whole entire growth period. When those plants die, those nutrients then give off back into the water body. Does that always result in an algae bloom? No, not at all. Do we certainly have some cases where, you do have the excess nutrients, which is, I guess the main component of any sort of algae growth. But that's something we would certainly monitor. And as Karen mentioned, the best time to treat would be earlier in the growing season when there's less biomass to die off after the treatment. Especially with fluoridone, you really want to get the herbicide in the water. I'd say when the plants are about roughly 6 inches to about a foot and a half. That way they can kind of grow into the herbicide and die with as little biomass and nutrient, influx as possible.
Thank you. Jen, do you have additional questions here?
I just have a couple. 'Cause I think Karen, you said it was a 3-step approach, the initial whole pond with fluoridone, but I don't remember you saying what steps 2 and 3 were. Can you redo that if you already mentioned it?
Yeah, so the first step was just the surveying, making sure that the invasive species are present, determining what our dosing will be. Step 2 is the survey-based follow-up in the years 2 and beyond. Each year resurveying, documenting any regrowth. And then the step 3 would be just continued maintenance and best management practices, just to reduce nutrient inputs and protect existing vegetated buffer function around the pond.
Okay. And depending on the time of year, would any of this require management of the dam itself? I mean, there's a lot of water flowing through it if you're trying to keep that contact time.
Yeah, so we take that all into consideration. There's different formulations of sonar or the fluoridone. There's a liquid formulation and there's a pellet formulation. Just for the example that you said, if there's no way to control the flow, you use more of the granular or pellet formulation. Similarly, if we have excess rain events and we really need to hold that concentration. So when we do the dosing for fluoridone, it's really a volumetric calculation that takes everything into consideration from, the acre feet depth, their turnover rates, downstream effects, influx of the instream effects, etc. So we work with the manufacturer and they have an app they use and paired with stream stats, and we go over every single possible scenario to combat, just like what you said.
I don't remember seeing it. Did you provide or propose a water quality monitoring program after you do the treatment? I know several
So
people in town will probably be concerned about the herbicide.
similar to the ones that we sent to other water bodies in town. Really, a pond that's this size, we would probably year 2 through 5 either move to a monthly monitoring program or we're out there during the growing seasons from May through September. Smaller water bodies have the ability to change growing conditions much more rapidly, obviously, than larger water bodies with a smaller littoral zone. So we would either move to maybe a monthly monitoring schedule, May to September, or really just do a mid-season June or July survey just to document any sort of regrowth and decide the next steps moving forward.
So that's about the plants, but anything to
Yep.
do with the actual water?
Yeah, I'd want to say it'd be similar to what Joe sent you previously. The main nutrients we really want to watch out for is, any of the nitrates, nitrites, phosphoruses, and kind of like what Ben mentioned earlier. Probably one of the most abundant tests we do is the algae ID biomass and classification. It has the ability to show you every single species and genus of algae within the pond, their cell counts, and kind of how to move forward for the next steps. And we can certainly send you examples, if you did want to pursue that moving forward.
Okay. And what about, I seem to remember years ago when I read the GEIR, there were buffers along shorelines and specific habitat areas where there was no treatment. Is that something that's still proposed Or is that something proposed here as well?
That's not proposed here just because there are no rare endangered species within the pond that would be of concern. If there were, we would certainly implement a buffer zone and or no treat zone. But if you would like us to pursue, an area that we can maintain and have a no treat zone, we're more than happy to do that as well.
Yeah, there's no rare species that I know of. But we are also interested in our common wildlife as well. And we are in the area of critical environmental concern, which
Yeah.
might not have been mentioned before, but just so folks are aware of that. Those are my questions for the moment. Yeah, thanks. I don't know if anybody
I have a
else
new
from
one to
commission
add
has
as much for our group as for our applicants. Should we be considering adding natives?
native plants. I mean,
Yeah.
not-
Is there logistically a way to do that in a waterway?
I've been reading about those floating pond islands, which seem really cool for.
Yeah, the floating pond islands are really cool. We've had a couple ponds use them. My only thing, just from experience of seeing them, the maintenance and upkeep with those, just because a lot of the waterfowl decides to use those for nesting, and what we've seen in the field is they get very messy without any sort of upkeep or maintenance. But definitely a super cool idea. We have pet ducks back here, and we have a kiddie pool, and we did a kind of a floating island in our kiddie pool for our pet ducks here. I thought it was a cool idea.
I think my overall concern is just, are we getting into a cycle where we're going to have to just keep doing this forever? And is there a way to mitigate or minimize how often we have to do it? And would a strategy for doing that be replanting some types of natives there? But I think even just eliminating competition, I'm sure, helps them thrive.
Yeah, and that's what's really cool about the herbicides that are out here in today's technology is the best approach is what we are proposing to use here with the systemic herbicides, which are very susceptible to invasives. If we were just using contact herbicides, sorry, I'm a little sick. It's more of a cycle where you do have to do this every year and really keep up with it. With systemic herbicides, you're actually able to target the roots, the plants by the roots, getting effective control for 3 to 5 years. Unfortunately, with pond and lake management, it's kind of an ever-going process where conditions are changing. Luckily here, there's not, a big crazy boat launch where you have water skiers, people tubing. That's really where you see, a lot of the spread in the invasive action, of course, is through public boat launches, etc., or the boats just coming in and out. So that should help minimize those conditions moving forward. And as Karen said, the goal is certainly not to eliminate all plants whatsoever. The goal is really just to bring that ecosystem as a whole back to a positive, balanced, healthy state. Where it's at right now has several negative impacts, whether it's the dense vegetation that are forming those mats of vegetation on the surface, which are shading the plants below, whether it's the macroinvertebrates, the fish, the waterfowl that depend on it, affecting the DO, recreation use, etc. So our goal is to really target those invasive species and potentially just scale back maybe some of those native species that are very beneficial to the pond, just to more of a healthy ecological balance, and really just maintain it for the next 3 to 5 years. As Karen said, we don't go out there and we don't treat if it's not necessary. We could go 5 years from now and not have to do a single treatment after year 1. But like I said, pond and lake conditions are ever changing, which is why monitoring and doing water quality collection dates and survey dates are extremely important to maintaining that goal.
And native plants, you mean the water lilies and the water shield?
Water lilies, water shield, etc. Yep.
And Ben, you asked about adding native plants, not so much to the water, but certainly vegetated buffers around the pond help with water quality. Not proposed here, but voluntarily, that would be beneficial to the water quality of the pond.
Yep.
And you didn't get a file number or comments from DEP yet, right? Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay.
Any other members of the commission have questions or comments here?
Just a quick
Yeah.
one, kind of to circle back, Ben, to your saying, like, is this going to be a reoccurring problem over the years? I kind of, how I'm just kind of reading this right now, it's that we're going to douse this with chemicals. We're going to hope that it kills everything, but it seems it's going to kill everything. This is, I mean, we know what these chemicals really do. They're not, it's going to kill a lot of stuff in there. And I don't really see what our goal is to now fixing and replanting and remaking this better. I feel like we're just going to continue 5 years down the road. We're going to be having the same meeting. This is my big fear right now. I don't see much of a restoration here. I just see it just killing what we have. It's gonna, it's gonna come back, and then
Maybe you guys can explain how other ponds in the area have reacted to the initial treatment and
Yeah, of
what
course.
the treatment is like afterward. Maybe that's helpful.
or actually, what ponds you have done in the area that we maybe
Yeah,
know
so
about?
we manage everything from small backyard ponds that are 1/10 of an acre to drinking water reservoirs that are hundreds and almost 1,000 acres and everything in between. Certainly have done. We can give you guys references. We do a lot of work within that 495-95 corridor. Whether it's for rod and gun clubs, the size of this pond, or YMCA camps, something more along the lines of the pond we're talking about here. We're not just dosing it and killing everything in the pond. It's a pretty precise scientific process we go through the background here. Like I said, I might look young, but I usually don't have a mustache. I did it for marathon. My wife ran a marathon, but a bunch of grays coming in. I've been doing this for 17 years. I've seen pretty much every single plant in the Northeast. I've been through every single condition. I've seen almost every case by case. What we would target here is just the invasives. If there's no management done whatsoever, you're going to see your pond slowly go through the eutrophication process, and you're going to lose this pond, whether that's in 5 years, whether that's in 50 years. The eutrophication process is very different. I'd say that's the biggest issue with New England ponds right now, is eutrophication as a whole. That's probably one of the biggest issues we're getting almost daily on our phone, whether it's the muck buildup, whether it's plants that aren't managed. And I guess the biggest takeaway here is every man-made pond, well, the evolution of a man-made pond is it's going to turn back into what it was before management occurred. So without any sort of management here, essentially you'll lose this pond, and conditions are going to worsen. Not only the conditions aesthetically for people or recreationally, but conditions within the water column itself, whether that is for the wildlife, for any breeding ground, for any bugs, mosquitoes, you name it. So management certainly does have to be here. I actually did this survey about 3 years ago. I couldn't even use a motor in this pond. I ended up having to row most of the pond just to get around. So really, without any management, more or less, you'll lose the pond in a matter of, like I said, 5 years, 50 years, etc. The technologies we're using now, like I said, we're only going to be targeting invasives, and really trimming back any sort of natives. We're really just prolonging that eutrophication process, just to make more of a healthy ecosystem back to really what it needs.
Just the phrase targeting the invasives, if it's systemic, it's gonna hit all the plants in that area.
Yeah, we'll hit the plants, but like I
Thank you.
said, only at certain rates, we're going at. And we're not going out there and we're not, putting max label rates out there. We're going out there with specifically the rates that are going to be used to target milfoil and fanwort.
And
be
those
clear,
plants
too.
are in such densities. I mean, I can't picture that, right? The herbicide isn't gonna go just to the invasive plant and then there's a water lily right next to it and not go to the water
Exactly.
lily.
Correct. So just for an example, just to paint the better picture, say there's a fanwort plant directly next to a water lily. For us to target that milfoil plant or the fanwort plant, we need a concentration of 8 to 10 parts per billion. For us to target the water lily plant, for it to be effective on water lilies, we need a concentration of 20 parts per billion. So we almost have to double the dose in order to have any sort of effect on a water lily, if that makes sense. So although there is fluoridone within that water lily population, it's not the correct dose that will affect that water lily.
Thank you. That actually was helpful. I haven't heard it that way before, but thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Of course.
So a couple of comments here. When I was previously on this commission in 2016 to 2019, just prior to that, Stoughton wanted to do a joint cleanup of Long Pond, the Stoughton folks call it Ames Pond, what have you. We chose not to for a variety of different reasons. Stoughton did. And that did stave off the eutrophication process quite a bit. I know they're looking at doing something again, or they were looking in 2022, whatever it might be. I just know as a fisherman, after they did the treatment, it was also easier to fish. The other comment is a pond. I believe it was the Agawam Mill Pond. Years ago down where Mark Anthony's is in Wareham. I used to take my nephews before they went in the Marines and go fishing and things like that down there. And you could do that. And then over the course of their deployment, as they came home, it got worse and worse, more stagnant, more, you couldn't even throw a worm or a lure in. It was so polluted. And they did the fluoridone treatment down there, and they're bringing their kids back now to that. And now whether they've done management doses over time, or I guess, maintenance doses, I guess you'd call them, rather than the full treatment, the pond is free and clear. Shouldn't say free and clear. It's clear enough that you can do what you want to do. It doesn't look like New Pond. So not scientific. I have no studies, but I have Google. I go and look. And I see lots of people doing a lot of different repair and getting rid of this milfoil. And so that's what I see out there.
Yeah. Anecdotally, Long Pond, from my experience, pre and post treatment are two different ponds. Still has the invasives, but not at the rate that they were there pre-treatment about a decade ago.
Correct. And again, going back to, there was a time when I was a child and I had a broken neck and I could only stay at one home other than where I lived on Bay Road. And that was up on Long Pond. It was a home of the Bratt family, which is one of the first 5 houses into the town who were allowed to use the pond. And we used to be able to fish both sides all the time. We could fish the Stoughton side all the way up, if you know, to the windmill house up on Bay Road. And we stopped fishing the eastern end with the house with the water wheel because it got so clogged. So again, not scientific, just that's what my eyes are telling me. So
yeah, and we also manage Agawam Mill as well. Back to your point, they're only treating about 5 to 8 acres this year out of the hundreds of acres of water body just to spot treat any sort of regrowth. They actually use Priscillacor there, which is actually on this NOI. Priscillacor just came out about 8 years ago, about 6 years ago in Massachusetts, 8 years ago throughout the US. Specifically only targets a pigment that is located in milfoil, does not touch any other plant. So, after we do the fluoridone treatment, if there is any milfoil regrowth, when it does come up, they can easily be spot treated with Priscillacor. It's supposedly U.S. Army Corps engineers. Everybody has been using Priscillacor lately. It's probably one of the most widely used milfoil herbicides out there, just based off its selectivity. Even then, you only have to use ounces of it per acre, just because of how selective it is to that specific chlorophyll pigment in milfoil. So, like I said, we're using very specific doses, very specific target plants. Everything is kind of done to a science. a lot of work going in the background to make this work. Not just going out there blindly treating a pond just to treat it. A lot of data going into it, and a lot of calculations on the back end to ensure that we're all on the same page, promoting a healthy water body and just keeping that healthy ecosystem going moving forward.
Yeah, and just to add, the goal is not to create an empty artificial pond, and it's to reset the competitive balance. And since fanwort and water variable milfoil are outcompeting the native assemblage and driving the pond towards a less healthy condition, we would just like to target that, do a whole pond approach, and hopefully allow for conditions for the native species to once again dominate.
So when you did the evaluation, the fanwort and is it variable milfoil? Did you find anything lurking underneath it? So that once those plants are clear, nothing else
Yeah.
is gonna shoot up. I'm just thinking of like Barrowsville Pond in Norton. It was full of water chestnut. And once that's gone, it was like, ooh, everybody else got to creep up and become a problem. Have you seen anything else underneath there?
There was such a dense monoculture. I remember throwing rakes, and the rakes must have been 50 pounds trying to bring them up just because of how dense the monocultures were of the variable milfoil and fanwort.
Okay.
Not to say when you create the open space, just like anything in the woods, if you cut a couple of trees down, something's going to want to grow in that new space where sunlight can penetrate. The hope is to have healthy balance of natives, like Karen said, kind of replace where that invasive species used to be. But all I could see when I was throwing rakes was just milfoil, fanwort, milfoil, and fanwort.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds right. All right, any additional questions or comments from members of the commission before we go to public comment? All right, seeing none, let's open public comment with Kyla Bennett, as she's been patiently waiting for some time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are you aware, Mr. Lacoste, that both Priscillacor and Fluoridone have trifluoromethyl groups and they're considered PFAS?
Yeah, everything we use is EPA approved. There's been several cases where I can send you case studies where PFAS were not found within any sort of testing whatsoever. So I would certainly be able to pass you along any sort of documentation or information you need to reassure you.
No, you're misunderstanding me. Fluoridone itself is a PFAS. It has a fully fluorinated carbon. Procellacor itself is a PFAS. It has a fully fluorinated carbon. It's not that they have PFAS in them. They are themselves PFAS as defined by the state of Massachusetts. So my fear here is, and also, as Jen pointed out, we are in an ACEC. Fluoridone and Priscillacor both are toxic to aquatic species, to insects, to fish. So it's not this harmless, you're making it sound like you're going to go in there and carefully just kill the milfoil and that everything else is going to blossom and grow and it's going to be a natural, healthy ecosystem. That is not true. We are talking about persistent PFAS chemicals, herbicides, which will last in there for years. And I personally, at work, for what I do, we just had a dash is being done on a 60-acre pond in New Hampshire with milfoil. It's working just fine. So I would urge the commission, especially given the PFAS contamination issue we have in this town, to consider looking into DASH, talking to these people. I can give you the website and the name and number of people who do it if this group does not. But putting PFAS into Dew Pond is one of the most short-sighted and ridiculous things that I can think of doing, particularly when we're talking about an ACEC.
Yeah, and like I said, I can certainly get you as much data as you need. The formulation that it's in, it would not harm. I'm not sure where you're getting the data from that it harms all sorts of wildlife. It certainly doesn't. I can't, out of the 17 years I've done this, I've never seen any sort of mass die off of any sort of wildlife whatsoever. Sonar fluoridone is used in drinking water reservoirs around the world at very low concentrations, parts per billion. We do plenty of drinking water reservoirs with fluoridone. Just because you read, I guess, something online doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. There is a fluoridone that certainly can be listed. In the formulation and the complex that we're using it has no effect whatsoever on wildlife, etc. And does not stay in the water column or sediment. And like I said, we have plenty of data, of decades of data that we could be more than happy to forward to you. If you would like us to forward that over to
No,
you.
thank you. And I really do not appreciate you telling me that I'm just reading things on the internet. I have a PhD in ecology. I work on PFAS issues. I was the one who discovered PFAS in pesticides. So please don't just dismiss me as somebody who is doing research on the internet and coming up with facts that are not alternative facts, okay? These two pesticides are themselves PFAS. I don't know what you don't understand about that. They are defined as PFAS, okay? I do not think that Easton should be putting PFAS into our water bodies. And as far as, I'm not talking about huge fish kills, I'm talking about they are toxic. They are toxic to, look at the label. They are toxic to aquatic insects and to fish. If you look at the scientific literature, which I have, you can see that they are toxic. Is it going to kill everything immediately? No, but that's not the point. The point is that it will lead to mortality in some of these other species. But aside from that, putting PFAS into our water bodies in an area of critical environmental concern, which is water supply for 5 towns, is not a good idea. And just because we've done it for years does not mean it's a good idea to keep on doing it, particularly given the national PFAS contamination and the fact that this town had to spend $11.2 million to filter our water. And it costs us $1 million a year to change that filter out. And to make it worse by putting a PFAS pesticide into our water is just stupid. And I apologize for getting mad, but you really pissed me off by saying, don't just believe things you read on the internet. This is something I do for a living.
Kyle, I'm sorry to be the chair here, but would you mind just introducing yourself for the record?
Kyla Bennett, 2 Chickadee Lane. I have a PhD in ecology and a law degree. I work for public employees for environmental responsibility. I've been working on PFAS issues for the past 8 years.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to cause disrespect. And like I said, I can certainly send over any sort of data. I can just say everything we use has been through rigorous testing through the EPA, decades and decades and millions of dollars of testing to go through the EPA. And more secondly, Massachusetts has its own governing testing department for it to go through a secondary review. A lot of the states just accompany with the EPA and federal regulations. So when it's passed, it's passed. It goes through a secondary review in Massachusetts. As I mentioned, everything it's EPA approved. It's allowed under the Wetlands Protection Act. Everything we're doing, it's not crossing any sort of boundaries. But as I said, more than happy to send something over.
I actually think it would be helpful to see both of your documents. Right, you're both bringing up excellent points. I think it's helpful for not only me, but for the commission to read what Kyla has brought up and the journal articles, whatever scientific data she has, as well as James. It's helpful to hear and see your information as well. So
Agreed.
both of the, we welcome all of that, all of those comments from both sides. We're in a weird spot where the applicant is also the permitting authority. And it is a town project. And the permit can be looked at sort of on the side, right? So the permit could be all of the options available to the commission and to the town if they meet performance standards, but that doesn't mean they have to be used. Just throwing that out there too. So it would be helpful to see, both the documents that you're describing
course.
today, just so the commission and I can look at them.
Agreed.
Perfect.
We don't have a file number, so we would be continuing anyway. No decision is going to be made tonight. So go ahead.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, the active ingredient is fluoridone, which is a fluorinated herbicide. It's not technically classified as a PFAS, but we can certainly send over everything else under the current EPA and PFAS definitions, but we'll certainly send you everything we can to justify our case.
So all the conversation should go through the chair, please, both sides. Just have everyone go through Ben, please.
So, Kylie, you had your hand up again. I'm going to acknowledge you, and then I'm just going to ask if there's more public comments. We can come back to you if something else develops, but
Thank you.
You're free to speak whenever.
I'm happy to provide you with the documentation. I understand that it does not qualify for EPA's very narrow definition of PFAS, which has been challenged in court, but it is a PFAS under the Massachusetts definition of PFAS, and Minnesota and Maine and New York and all the other states and OECD, which all define PFAS as any compound that has at least one fully fluorinated carbon. I will be happy Jen, to provide you with that documentation. And I'm not suggesting that we do nothing. I'm suggesting that one of the alternatives that the commission should explore is DASH, because DASH does work. It's being done on much bigger water bodies, and it does not involve any kind of chemical application. And the last thing I want to say is that just because it's approved by EPA does not mean it's safe. I'm sorry. This is what I do for a living. I used to work at EPA. This is how we got to where we are with PFAS contamination, because EPA said, and still continues to say, this is just fine. So that does not make me feel comfortable that it's safe for our town, our fish, our insect life, and our water supply and the people who live here by saying, oh, but EPA says it's safe, especially under this administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyla. So with that, if anyone else is here to give public comment, please raise your hand using the Zoom function and we'll promote you to a panelist.
Yep, we have one. I have to find more paper. Hold on.
Hi, Andrew, Missouri. I live at 1 New Pond Way. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and thank you for introducing yourself for the record.
Oh, I assume that was the procedure.
Yeah.
I live at 1 New Pond Way. Since we're touting our bona fides, I have a medical degree from Boston University School of Medicine, a PhD in human physiology, and a PhD in biophysics. I live on New Pond. I've seen the invasive species take over. I really appreciate that we're having this conversation. I acknowledge that there are more than one way to handle this. And as somebody who abuts the pond and has a well, so I would be directly affected in a sense, I mean, whatever's going into the pond has the real possibility of affecting my well. I'm comfortable with this process and with us looking into all the different options. I think it's a great idea that Ms. Carlino had of everybody supplying their background information, and we can just kind of go from there. And so I'm hoping that we can kind of, bring things back to a non-adversarial conversation where we all agree that what we want is for the best thing for the waterways, for the town properties, for the conservation, all of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of this documentation.
Thank you. And I think I'd be surprised if anyone on this call didn't have an interest in treating the invasives one way or another.
Yeah.
Ben, you had one comment in Q&A, so.
I do,
Just
but
wanna
I
read that.
believe that that person was also a participant, so I just wanted, I'll say one more time, if anyone would like to give further public comment, and I will read the comment into the record that's been made in the Q&A function. Please raise your hand using Zoom. We'll promote you to panelist and you'll be allowed to speak. All right, seeing no one, I'm
Oh,
gonna
no,
move.
she's
Oh,
coming. Sorry. Iris.
Iris, I don't know if you can hear us, but just a reminder, please just introduce yourself. You don't have to give us a full resume, just name and address. It's to keep an accurate public record of the meeting.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, yes, my name is Iris Papagno, 2 New Pond Way, and I live right on the pond. I am not a scientist at all. All I want to say is, with my own eyes, I have seen how the pond is suffering and is changing, and I'm putting my trust in you that something needs to be done and will be done. And I'm grateful for all the inputs, but I really want to stress, I don't think we can wait. Every year it's been getting worse and worse. And it would be very sad to lose the pond for all the people who enjoy it and the recreation. I mean, the pond is full of people enjoying it all summer long. And if it turned, more of this milfoil, and when you go out with the canoe, your oars get stuck, and it's just, yeah. We just see how it has changed, and it's changing fast. And so I just want to thank everyone who's working on this to make a change, to make it better. That's my comment.
Thank you. If anyone else is here to give public comment, please raise your hand and you will also be promoted to panelist. Seeing none, I'm right this time, right, John?
Yeah.
We do have a Q&A from Denise Higgins, which reads, as a daily observant, we are going to lose this pond very soon if nothing is done. It provides a wonderful recreational and aesthetically special area for the town. I am concerned about the time that this has taken to even engage and begin to address this eradication, given we have so much to do with town approval.
Yeah, it's only the beginning of the conversation, right? We're all trying to pull our thoughts together and come up with a program and a project that will be effective, but that everyone is comfortable with. So be a lot more conversation on it.
So with that said, we are waiting for a DEP number. We don't have an ability to close tonight, even if we wanted to. And it sounds like we have some questions to sort of answer as a group. So I just want to thank everybody for the time and attention tonight. And with that, I'll make a motion to continue this to the next meeting of the Conservation Commission.
Vecchio second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second. Roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Vecchio aye.
So that's the June 8th meeting. You may have said that, but I was looking for my page.
I did not say it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, so it is really helpful if we get all information in. We say a week before, but it seems like we're going to get a lot of information. So as soon as possible is really helpful. So I can get that out to the commission members and we can start reading what everyone brought up tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. So we'll move on to our next order of business, continued hearings and possible deliberations. First up is 8 Washington Street.
They've requested a continuance to the next meeting, June 8th.
Motion to continue 8 Washington Street to the next meeting of the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Carol motion, Goodman second. Roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Vecchio aye.
Okay.
Moving on to certificates of compliance. Do we have any?
No.
Nope.
Sorry, I've been so we'll move on to board discussion.
Yes, to Washington Street, Peter Calley sent a revised plan requesting minor modifications. So I'm going to share the screen. And just let me know when you see it.
Got it.
Okay. So Washington Street, can you see the cursor?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, Washington Street is way over here on the left. The driveway will come in here, I think between this other garage and the office, gravel driveway. This everything stays the same except for the location of the barn was here, just past the 50-foot no disturb area. They would like to move it further away from the wetland. So that's a good.
You need a motion.
We do need a motion, but it would not require a change to the order of conditions. So it's just a minor modification.
Any board discussion warranted, I ask the board? We're moving something farther away from a resource. Okay. Motion to allow the minor modification on 2 Washington Street as proposed.
Second.
Carol motion, Goodman second. Roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
So next up is reappointments to boards, associates, and officers.
Yeah, so the email went out to the people who need to ask for reappointment, but they're also asking about officers and associate members.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I could, we definitely need to do it, but this needs to be pushed out till the July 20th meeting, because we won't have reappointments till 1 July, and we don't, that's the closest meeting to that. Last year, upon my reappointment, the meeting was the week before, so I had no say in who represented what and who was chair and who was vice chair, because I wasn't able to vote at the meeting, which is typically it's after reappointment. So I asked that we handle those issues on Monday, July 20th meeting.
Okay. I hear your concern. Do we have any town deadlines that we need to abide by here, John, in relation to telling them the organizational structure and who's going to be on the committees? Like, when's the first CPC committee meeting?
Probably July 1, but I mean, I've always seen it where you get together and you vote in July. But they, through the clerk's office, they always ask for that vote to happen before July. So we'd have to reread the email to see if they set an exact deadline.
Yeah, it just doesn't, I'm not trying to interrupt. It just doesn't make sense, because again, as a new commissioner last year, I had no say in who represented me. Obviously I was happy with the board makeup and the committee makeups and such, but again, technically and legally, I had no say, which doesn't make sense, where especially this year where we have 2 people up for reappointment. Why would they vote? And then let's just say that the board appoints 2 different people other than the 2 who I hope they return, because I like this group and I think we do good work. But if they didn't, that wouldn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? Because you're going to have a personnel change.
So functionally, your comment, and I think it's very well taken, is that let's say that I vote for the makeup of this commission, and then the select board doesn't appoint me to stay or doesn't appoint Phil to stay. How does that impact us moving forward? I suppose in that instance, there would maybe be a vacancy, but it's a conversation that we could avoid by just confirming with the town clerk as to when they want this and if there's an existing deadline. So
yeah, we certainly have plenty of time between now and then. And I mean, and technically, I guess it can be a a line item at any meeting, at any time on an agenda. We could rearrange the board every week if we felt like it.
Do you know how much paperwork that would create?
Oh, with all due respect, paperwork.
Mike,
You know, see, this is a good team. We could all laugh at that and take what we will each on our own agendas.
Right.
Spady and I are just going to keep switching off between chair and vice chair, but meeting by meeting.
Oh boy. We'll have to get this again.
Well,
I
that's
would have
good.
to do that. I would have to post those letters every meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree
Indeed.
with you, Mike. I don't know why it's before then, but that's what we had been asked to do in the past. But
yeah,
we can just
no
go
big
back
thing.
to that email and we can double check and we can talk about it in June. Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that cover everything we needed to talk about on reappointments
It's good.
for the interim?
Mhm.
I think so.
Meeting minutes for 4/27/26.
I didn't even review them. Anyone else?
Didn't have an agenda to look at because I had a new. I think that was Jen. I figured that maybe that was because that was the day I was getting a new phone.
Oh,
Mm,
The
but
new
that
phone
doesn't
might
explain why your emails bounced back to me today.
Yeah, but then I got the other ones.
Hmm.
Eh.
It may have been the file size on that binder.
Well, we'll wait and see next week. But notwithstanding, 2 of the 4 members didn't look at them, so I can't vote yay or nay. So
All right, just put it on the next meeting.
easy.
So CPC updates is next.
Nothing spectacular. Yeah. We have a meeting this Thursday, so I'll have something for you next time.
Thank you, Phil. Chair updates. As a reminder to everyone, town meeting is 5:18. I will be getting off a flight at about 5 and doing my best to make something work by presence. But some attendance by some of us would be very appreciated. Additionally, we were very nicely invited by the Easton Children's Museum to their sort of celebration of, in part, the project that we approved as a commission and they completed. And that is 5/16, if anybody can go, between 10 and 11 a.m.
that's a Saturday, isn't that Mr. Crossman's on his list?
I don't know, but he's not here, so we'll ask him.
So that means it is on his list.
Exactly. All the more reason. I'll teach him to miss a meeting. I will be at town meeting.
Very good.
That's good. I was going to say if Ben doesn't make it, there should be one backup if someone's available in case someone asks about the stormwater utility. You know, the conservation restrictions for the Community Preservation Committee, I think that will be handled by the CPC, but it also doesn't hurt to have somebody there. If you need more information on those, then let me know.
I too plan to be at the town meeting.
Okay, great.
I will not be there. I'll be in Maine again, but next time.
Mike and I got it.
There you go.
Excellent.
You're up next, Jen. Environmental planner updates.
I'm up next. So we went to the NRT festival last 2 weeks ago. We had our tree demo. I have an entire car full of pamphlets and books for people. So come and get some free information. We're also doing a program where we're trying to offer some subsidized arborist work to some, mostly underserved communities. So there are applications that people can fill out if you know someone who could use some assistance with tree removal. This is all through the MVP grant. And so folks would be asked to pay 10% of a bill. We're working with 3 different arborist companies who are sort of rotating, but trying to help us and help residents spend that funding by mid-June. So there's some information on the agenda for that.
can I just press on that a little bit? Because I think this one would be helpful. Like I have since really, I wasn't really even alert to it, to be honest with you, until about a week ago. But it's a massive incentive for someone, you know, who might be struggling a little bit to get hazard tree work or tree work done at 10% cost. And there have not been a ton of takers to this. Send it to people you know. And I think the qualification is basically identical to the septic system loan for the town if you have a failed system. So they're not, it's not a incredibly challenging standard for people to meet to qualify for it.
Yeah, just click on one of the buttons that say here and see what the application looks like. If people meet those eligibility requirements, then submit, because we got money to spend. And we want to help people take care of their hazard trees. That's it for me.
All right. Any pertinent item not reasonably anticipated by the chair?
Yes, Mr. Chair, while I was experiencing technical difficulties, the board did vote. It is a legal binding vote. Obviously, you know that. We all know that. 3-0. I would like to state publicly my opposition to the new stormwater bylaw. I think it's government growing government, and I'm not a fan of it. And I'm not. I'm just think it's something that we don't need. And a lot of the work is duplicitous. Some of the equipment is duplicitous, and that's my opinion. And there are people who I answer to, some taxpayers. So I just like to get that on the record that I'm in opposition to the stormwater enterprise vote and all that associated with it. Thank you.
Your position is noted for the record. Thank you, Mike. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Vecchio, second.
Carol motion, Vecchio second. Roll call vote. Carol, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Bailey, aye.
Vecchio, aye.
Nice job tonight, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
everybody.
Thanks all. Take care.
Okay.
Have a